So you can just answer the poll questions, the icebreaker, as we wait for more people to join, and then we'll start in 5 minutes. So we're just waiting for the ones who recently joined to finish the poll. Then we can start. Okay, so for the icebreaker questions, if you could choose any one subject to study, 67% of you said reading or languages. If you're up for karaoke, the highest Nini got was old school songs. And we have some old souls in the building, yay. Which historical figure would you want to meet? 44% of you said a Bible character. And if you could have a superpower, most of you said mind reading. I think we are almost 90% of us are on the mind reading bit. I don't know if it's because we're in the education sector, money. So I think we could start. Welcome everyone. Thank you again for joining us this evening on Wednesday. This is episode 9 of our journey. We're so excited to have you all here with us. My name is Beatrice Wangari. I'm the host today. And I am the director, team lead, and founder of LAL Homeschooling Center, which is a learning center. That our main goal is inclusivity and smaller classrooms through education tech and early childhood. So a little bit about Kurasa. Kurasa is an innovative Kenyan-based edtech solution that's supporting teachers and schools to better execute CBC implementation. And Kurasa is currently used by over 250 teachers across 100 plus classrooms and by over 1,000 parents. And this is our 9th edition of our podcast. Today we shall be talking to Sally Moraa to learn more about nurturing care in ECD. And just a little bit of housekeeping, make sure your mics are on mute. And if you have a question, please use the chat feature to submit your question. And then at the end of the webinar, we will address the questions and during our Q&A session. So without further ado, let me welcome Sally Moraa. Tell us about yourself. What do you do, your roles? Yeah, karibu sana.
Thank you so much, Kare, for this opportunity. I'm actually humbled to be here. About myself. Before I begin about myself, you shared a poster with me on your last podcast, and the topic for this, for the last poster that you shared had been ECD education and brain development. And I'm excited, very happy that one of my coaches, I train on science of early childhood, and I just saw Najma Rashid in this webinar. So I'm really excited and humbled to have her come to our podcast. I'm also humbled
because Najma is my mom.
Oh,
that's why she's here. Yes.
She's your mom. Wow.
Yes,
it's an honor.
Oh,
She was my teacher. Wow.
Wow.
It's an honor. Okay. And also my boss, my mentor, Dr. Teresa Moma, the ECDNeK Kenya director, is here, and who is also a close colleague of Najma. So I'm really humbled that the two mentors in my life are in this podcast today. So thank you, Khadija, for the presence of your mother. And thank you, Daktari, because I know she's listening in somewhere here.
Yeah.
Sally is
she's always Najma is always in the podcast every
single Wednesday.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Even if I'm not hosting.
Sorry, Khadija, I didn't capture that.
So I said Najma is always the podcast every Wednesday, even when I'm not hosting.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I think her internet is a bit slow, but we caught it. Yeah, she's one of our biggest fans, and she's always very supportive. So it's good to see that it's a small ECD community.
Yes, it is. Yeah. So Sally is an ECD practitioner. I studied early childhood development in Kenyatta University. I am undergoing my master's as well in the same institution. I have been working in the ECD space under mentorship and coaching from Dr. Teresa for a few years now. I work currently as a programs liaisons officer at ECDNeK for Kenya, and that is where I'm currently at. I have a basic course training in science of early childhood, basic course training in care for child development. I love traveling. I love socializing. I love knowing new people, and I'm really excited for Kurasa. I like new innovations as well. So this is very amazing, and I'm really humbled to be here. That's a bit about Sally.
Thank you so much for your introduction. So because let's just dive into it. So tell us, what is nurturing care in ECD? Just explain to us what is nurturing care for those of us who have no idea what it is. If you just explain what nurturing care in ECD is, and then from there on we can delve more into it.
Thank you so much, Carrie, for that question. Basically, nurturing care is giving young children opportunities. These opportunities will enable and help them to reach their full potential, and they will enable them through the 5 interrelated and indivisible components, which are good health, adequate nutrition, safety and security, responsive caregiving, and opportunities for early learning. Nurturing care produces lifelong and intergenerational benefits for health and productivity for our children. And there's always this beautiful saying that says, investing in ECD is the best investment that can guarantee a return of investment. For every $1, you get $13. So nurturing care, it refers to, it came about through the conditions created by public policies, programs, and services. But in a nutshell, it's basically the basic interactions that we've always had and that are responsible for emotional support. This is the responsive caregiving. It's as basic as what our grandparents, our parents have done for centuries and centuries. Encompassing all that, it comes together to nurturing care and trying to put a framework to it that can be able to help our children achieve generational productivity.
Thank you so much for that. So now we know what nurturing care is, the 5 components. So is nurturing care being implemented in Kenya?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's being implemented in Kenya. It has been. Just to mention such a few places that we've been able to have beautiful success stories of nurturing care. If we go in terms of economic, that's the regional Lake Region Economic Bloc, particularly counties such as Siaya, they've been thriving and doing very well in nurturing care. They're headed by organizations such as PATH and partners that are down there. If we go vast majority, Samburu, UNICEF has been doing amazing works over there. So nurturing care, yes, it is in our midst, it's in our presence, it's being implemented in Kenya.
Okay, so what would you say are the advocacy efforts that have been put in place or are being have been put in place already or are being put in place in nurturing care in Kenya?
So Kenya has a beautiful story. I'll begin from there. Kenya has a beautiful story because a lot of work over the years has gone into research and generating data that can support why nurturing care is important, why ECD is now becoming the talk, and for the next 100 years, ECD will be a global agenda. Those are reports from World Bank. And when you envision and you look at advocacy efforts go from the lowest bar, which is our implementers on the ground, people who have an understanding of proper care, responsive caregiving from the health sector, from the education sector, from children protection. All this encompasses an enabling environment for these children. So what are the efforts that we can put? When you fragment the different sectors and you look at us as an ecosystem, you discover that for an implementer to be able to do this at the local level, they need support of legal frameworks that guide and support them. These legal frameworks are the policies in place. These policies are creating an enabling legal environment for the implementers to do their work. But these people are supported by research and data that has come in. So we have a lot of academic institutions. This could be public universities. This could be researchers, independent researchers who are doing works. This could be institutions, research institutions such as HRC and the likes. People who are putting in work that they can encompass an ecosystem that is holistic to be able to lobby for nurturing care in Kenya. So what are the efforts? The efforts would be the webinars that are being done, such as this, to be able to create more awareness of nurturing care. The efforts could be the national conferences, such as the ones that are done by my office on ECD, whereby people come together currently we're planning for the 5th National Stakeholders Conference. Such platforms bring together ECD stakeholders from every sector, bring them together and enable them to discuss about early childhood. And nurturing care keeps propping up. It could be a bill such as the other day, Kajiado County was able to pass an ECD bill. Could be the bills that are guiding and providing more legal frameworks that can actually create a legal environment that is enabling for us to have this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you look at it, all these are advocacy efforts to lobby for nurturing care. If you look at it, articles that are being written, every now and then we have maybe an article popping maybe on the national paper, or
Yeah.
maybe on academia websites, or maybe it could be a research being done by a student. And this student is able to present work that is within the environment. All these, whether it's large scale or small scale, all these are enabling efforts towards advocacy of nurturing care in Kenya.
Yeah. Okay, so as you were saying, there are so many policies and advocacies. I imagine there's challenges, because you see we deal with, especially in ECD, it's not yet to its full potential, and we see for us to fully holistically support the ECD learners, we have all stakeholders have to take part in it. What are some of the challenges you'd say that you have seen when it comes to nurturing care?
It's basically unpacking what was packaged as something foreign. For instance, this wasn't new. These are things that we were doing. I see an emphasis from Najma in the WhatsApp saying that, in the chat, saying that we should put more depth and understanding in responsive caregiving and early learning opportunities.
Yeah.
Since time immemorial, we've been doing things that are normal to us as a culture. We've been practicing practices that are not foreign to us. But once we package it to look like it's something foreign, we take away from contextualization, and thus it becomes foreign to our people. That means there could be some sort of animosity towards a foreign concept. However, if unpackaged and contextualized to the understanding of that teacher that is down there doing her or his CBC curriculum, to understand what nurturing care is. That mom who's going for her health visits at the health clinic, and the nurse is telling her that you need to be able to breastfeed your baby in this particular manner, talk to them, play with them, have one-on-one sessions with your baby. If we are able to unpackage and actually contextualize these moments, we will understand that it's not a foreign concept. Another challenge that we are having is investment in this sector for ECD. We're still advocating for more and more funds that can be lobbied towards this sector so that we can have greater advancements. We are doing great, which is a great step, but we can do better. We can do better. Another challenge probably that I may think is maybe training. I'm looking at it in the response of, I'm looking at our demography. How many young university goers know that there are courses that can actually supplement the degrees we have in ECD? And if they are aware of this, how limited are these resources for them to be able to reach them, so that we can be able to have a national conversation? So when we say it's a national conversation, it's actually holistic. It's not just policymakers discussing or just researchers discussing. It's holistic and it encompasses each and every stakeholder in this particular sector. Another thing maybe I would say is as much as we might say that nurturing care is in all the counties in Kenya currently, how many are actually implementing it fully? How many are actually following, and who is doing the follow-ups? Are our government officers who are mandated to create enabling opportunities within the county governments for nurturing? Are they doing what they're supposed to do? Is it really happening on ground as it should on the blueprint? So those are just but a few of the challenges that I think they challenge us in the sector. Also, we have policies, but are these policies known by everyone? And should we get an understanding of every policy, will this enable us to really unpack and unravel what it actually means in terms of implementing within this legal framework? These are some of the few challenges I think they are there, but I do believe that with more lobbying efforts, with more advocacy efforts in every sector, we can be able to achieve.
Yeah. So just to reiterate on what you were saying about training, we find that especially in education sector, like right now that they introduced the CBC curriculum, when you go to most public schools, the teachers are not yet trained to implement the CBC as it's supposed to be. So is it the same when it comes to nurturing care? And is it just applicable from pregnancy to age 3, or does it continuously grow up to maybe when the child is up to 15 years old or after high school? Like what could you say is the age that nurturing care is most important in a child's life?
I'm sorry, Kara, I lost you a bit. Would you kindly repeat that question?
Okay, so I'm saying, just to add on what you had mentioned about training, most teachers have not been trained fully. Even when you look at the CBC curriculum and the 844, they're still implementing the CBC through the 844 method. So does that even happen when we talk about nurturing care? Is it the same thing, and is nurturing care only applicable from pregnancy to age 3, and once they're sent off to school, that's it? Or is it a continuous process from maybe when they're during from pregnancy all the way maybe to after school?
I believe it's a continuous process. It is a win for us that we now have a CBC curriculum, and we are able to encompass a lot of the things into our training, and we're able to unlearn what we knew and teach what we are expecting to teach our young generation. So if you ask me, I think it's a continuous process because it doesn't stop with the baby in the womb. It does not stop when the baby begins playgroup. It does not stop. It's a continuous process, and it's an ecosystem. Because when this baby, within ECD, we also have childcare. We have childcare. This is for the children, what we call daycare. Wale watoto ambao they're too tiny to actually begin our curriculum in school. However, they're grown enough for them to be taught. If you look at science of ECD and brain development and pruning of the brain and how the first 1,000 days mattering to us and why we need to be able to tap in time. This is for the efforts that will be deployed for the child as they grow. Early childhood development is from 0 to 8 years. This age is a beautiful age whereby children learn the most, and they also innovate the most. You're also able to understand what my child can become the most at this particular age. But this is in preparation as they roll out of the system, as they continue to higher learning, pre-primary, as they go higher and higher, all the way to high school, all the way to university. That's why we're investing in this particular age. But if we say that nurturing care is just for one, I think for me, it should be advocated for as a continuous process, holistic, because the 5 components, which are indivisible, they interrelate on each other, they interrely on each other. Each component might feed at a particular stage of this child. However, it interfeeds and actually feeds more to a bigger system, to a bigger ecosystem for these children. It goes higher and higher and higher. So for me, as Sally, I think it's a continuous process.
And I totally agree with you. I remember last week when we were speaking to Nelias about brain development, we tapped into how everyone can, every member of society can impact this child into growing holistically and helping them achieve their potential. And it doesn't matter that maybe between 0 to 3, they had a very tough childhood, so to speak. They can still unlearn and relearn. And it's our job as educators to make sure that we support them holistically. At school, we are their parents. We cannot control what happens at home, but once they come into our care, it is upon us to continuously. And I think nurturing care and brain development and early childhood have to go hand in hand. We cannot say we are promoting nurturing care if we're ignoring the other components. Yeah.
I agree with you, Kari. And you know what's actually beautiful about unlearning what we know? We are currently, through data, we now understand better that probably I should have just let my child explore. more.
Exactly.
Maybe I should have let them, instead of telling them how to play with the ball, I would have let them know that this ball is a ball, but you can manipulate it to be something else. It could serve different purposes. That is in school setting. What if in healthcare sector, instead of telling parents how to speak to the children, we would have encouraged them to speak to the children and would have learned the different languages. We would have learned that mothers, fathers have different languages to the children, but with the same end goal. And it's about how you actually believe that you can pass a message as opposed to how you should pass a message. Because if you pass a message in a particular way and you're convinced that it is this way or the highway, then we miss the mark. We miss the mark to that person who has a language barrier to what you're saying. We miss the mark to that parent or that educator who didn't have the higher learning that you have and is unable to understand what exactly are you trying to tell me to know. Or we miss the mark on how we talk about nurturing care to even policymakers or government players, because how they operate within their system would be different within how you operate within your system. But how do you put the languages together to understand that we're all on one page, we're all doing the same thing, and it's this same child that the protection department will have, that the health department will have, that the education department will have, the nutrition department will have. What are the foods that we need to know? And every department needs to work together. Every sector has to work together, because we're not coming, it's not my child as a nutritionist or my child as a teacher or my child as the nurse. It's our child. All of us, we are needed by this child for this child to survive and thrive.
Yeah, and also we also have to remember the special needs department, which they're usually left behind, especially even in schools. You go to public schools, they don't have nurses. Most of them have just someone who's supposed to be a nurse. And you see with special needs, they need extra care. Even I remember we had a guest on deaf inclusion. There's still no set curriculum that can entirely benefits the deaf child to even get them into university. So these are things that, as you said, nurturing care is a continuous process until this child is independent and has completely gained the most out of education, health, and all that. So we need to also be very inclusive, even in our spaces, in our workspaces. And as educators, I think it's very important that we educate ourselves. Even if you've not done special needs, educate yourself on the different types of special needs, because as an educator, it's very easy for you to pick out when a learner has maybe learning difficulties than a parent would, because you see some parents work from 8 to 10 p.m. They don't have a lot of time to notice maybe this child is he or she is struggling in school. They have maybe math problems, maybe they're dyslexic, you don't know. So as educators, I think it's very important for us to train ourselves. There's material on Google on all kinds of special needs. Be that nurturing, caring person, for lack of a better one. Be that person in society. Be that person in the classroom. Be that person when you're interacting with children. Be kind enough to notice these things.
And the good thing about it is, through responsive caregiving, as a caregiver, caregiver is a term that can encompass whether you're the mother, the teacher, the primal person that attends to this child in whatever sector you're in. Through responsive caregiving, if taught better, you can actually see the milestones of the child. You can be able to tell when a child has some particular aspects that relate to, maybe they have speech difficulty, maybe they cannot see, maybe they cannot hear. And when at a young age, whereby you can still mitigate and actually intervene and even help this child, it's a question of, are we able to equip our society with all the tools? Are we able to equip them with tools such that they know how do we talk to our mothers and our fathers when they're expecting a baby, when the baby is still in the womb? What are we looking for? How can we encourage them to keep coming to the hospital so we can track, we can create this journey, the 9 months together as we finish, and we keep tracking these babies, and we make it so personal that we can be able to track these small aspects that can be, oh no, my baby is deaf, but we know how to deal with it. It also helps even in the psychological way of how caregivers are able to, you know, wear in and be in the shoes of these primal caregivers. It helps. It now feeds the society better. We are able to, oh no, I don't know how to speak to a child who's deaf. No, because if you've shared the journey with them, your mind is also tuning into the possibilities that maybe they might never be able to hear me, but this is how I can make learning fun for them. This is how I can make living in this environment fun for them. And also, I think I can challenge all of us to be able to keep doing our research to know. Currently, a few years back, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, because of COVID, they just began an organization called the Africa Special Needs Education Network. The purpose is doing what you're speaking of. You're saying that there's no curriculum for special needs. There's no particular better advocacy done for special needs education. Fine, it's a fact, but we need to lobby on who is currently the space doing that. How can we amplify those voices? How can we amplify the Action Foundation? How can we amplify organizations like Andy? Those spaces, how can we use spaces that we have, spaces such as national conferences, so that we can be able to talk to more people about this issue, you know? And it's a beautiful way of letting the world know, like, hey, okay, you people, we don't really understand special needs. We are failing our kids. But I believe that if I invite maybe Asnen to Kurasa, they can share more light on what we are doing, so we can put the efforts together, you know?
Yeah. I think that's true. And also, it's not, I don't think we should just say it is this sector's job, for example, the health sector, to lead in efforts to advance. It is all of us. We all need to sit at the same table, the education sector, nutrition, health, social protection, because we also, when you talk about nurturing, we're also talking about safety of the child. We're also talking about culture and so many things. Like, it's not just a one-person job. So each one of us in this podcast, you have a job to do in nurturing care. So yeah, please proceed.
I see there's a comment in the chat that says ECDE, being a female-dominated field, are there efforts to bring more male teachers, caregivers into the field? And also there's an agreement to this 100% inclusive and responsive care involves a multi-sectoral approach. True. Just to share more light on that, I need to go through something basic that we need to continuously reiterate. The first 3 years of a child development is critical because of rapid brain development. All caregivers need to know this. All caregivers need to be aware of this. Capacity development for caregivers is critical to help them understand how children grow and develop. We need to capacity build more for all types of caregivers, whether it's special needs, whether it's primal caregivers who are teachers, or primal caregivers who are health nurses, pediatricians. We need to be able to capacity develop all these caregivers. And responsive caregiving does speak to feeding, meeting health needs, which are critical. And you know what's interesting about special needs? We need to be able to know that supporting children of special needs within our environments should be holistic. Should be totally holistic.
Definitely.
It's not the approach of what looks like it's enabling. It's the approach of what actually is enabling. Enabling is how are we sensitized to talk or to be in front of these children before we can put them in that playground that is holistic. How we sensitize to actually play with them in different settings and actually be able to know if a nurse is giving maybe an injection to a baby because it's a vaccine routine. Do they understand how to keep the baby calm? My baby could be autistic. Do they understand my baby maybe sees a needle and gets frightened? How am I sensitized to talk through the mother who's actually fatigued mentally because she or he has not understood how to nurture this baby in particular, and they're having challenges. So maybe the mother has become frantic, the baby is frantic, and the nurse is looking outside and like, I have a line of about 15 other mothers who are queuing. So it's those small aspects of the environment that shares on an enabling story. And I have an addition sharing that Kenyatta University Department of Special Needs trains personnel on special needs education. Actually, that's an opportunity that I'd like to share. On the question about male caregivers, from the lowest level, currently, we do have male engagement forums to support father-to-father support groups so that they can share on their journey as parents. Because it is true, sometimes maybe the journey of parenting children can be feminized only. But, and this happens not only in our homes, not only in our communities, but also maybe in our workspaces. It could be as simple as mothers are given maternity leave. We forget fathers also need maternity leave to support these people. It could be as basic as we give maybe counseling support to mothers. We forget that counseling support is also needed for fathers. It could be on opportunities. We think that ECD female teachers maybe are better off and more nurturing than male caregiver teachers. Maybe naturally women are natural caregivers. Beautiful story. But how inclusive can we be that we have male professionals who have gone outside there and actually practice ECD? And I'd like to tell the person that asked that question that yes, male caregivers are actually supported. They're actually supported, they're being trained. Currently, the global story on male engagement is quite hot right now. A lot of articles have come up on male engagement with caregivers. Some on our website, if you may allow me, Beatrice, to share, ECDNeK.org. There's a new report that came around from partners on male engagement, and that's a beautiful, I will post it here. And you can be able to actually tell people that these are the efforts going in the community. More ECD teachers are being employed in schools who are male, and it's a beautiful story. And actually they do amazing. They're artsy, they're able to be patient with the babies. In hospitals, more male pediatricians are also coming up, So I think it's a beautiful story. Also coaches, mentors who are actually mentoring science of ECD. We not only have female mentors in the space. Najma herself can let you know that she has had male colleagues who have also mentored and coached and are doing capacity development for the ECD space. So that even brings the story of, fathers can actually onboard, and it's a beautiful story. So yes, there is involvement for both.
And I think it also starts with you. It starts with you. And from how we are having these conversations, if you're in a position to take on nurturing care in ECD, be that person, be that what's the word? Be that trailblazer that does the out of norm thing that is usually very feminized about caregiving and all that. Be that person, be that mwalimu, be that nurse, be that pediatrician. It doesn't have a label to caregiving doesn't have a label. You don't have to be a Mr. or a Mrs. You can just do your part and be able to support this child holistically. Let me say, I think before we go to another question, are there any upcoming projects in your organization that you'd like to share? Maybe just a brief on maybe something that you are working on currently that revolves around nurturing care in ECD.
Yes, I'm excited to announce that we're currently planning for the 5th National ECD Stakeholders Conference. For the very first time, we are going to Turkana next year in July. We are encouraging every person on this platform to actually participate in one or the other. You can actually prepare an abstract when we'll be sharing out a rollout. I'll share our email with you so that you can be able to be aware. But I will text in our website so that you can always know what are the latest updates that we're sharing from the Secretariat's office. So the conference it's a very great opportunity for people to network, for people to share their story. What are the ECD best practices within your sector that you're celebrating? Do you want to share that story with us? This is the place for you. You can just register as a participant, whether virtually or physically, to come. I'll share all the details with you, the requirements that are required so that you can share with your people and your space so that they may be able to know. Also, I'd like to encourage members of this platform to be members. You can become a member of the ECD network. And again, those details are on our website, and you can share your stories with us. And Kurasa, invite Kurasa to actually share the story about how Kurasa was formed. What was the thinking behind it, and why this is a very beautiful innovation for Kenya right now. And Kurasa can actually share its story, and we can publish and share it with our members, because we have a database as well, so that they know there is Kurasa, a very amazing platform that everybody needs to talk about right now. So yeah.
Great, we will be there. Margie, William. Yeah, we'll be there. So let me address the questions, because I'm seeing we have about 15 minutes or less. So we have a comment from Teresa. Let me start from Rachel. Actually, she's responding to Alois. Yes, there has been efforts to involve male on ECD. For instance, the last employment that Nairobi County Department of Education had conducted, male teachers were given first priority on caregiving. In the health facilities today on MCH clinic, fathers are given first priority. So that, as Sally would say, it's a beautiful story. Teresa Moraa, to everyone as well. Male teachers are equally important in children's lives as significant other for the boy child. We encourage more males to join the ECD sector. And Martina, for those who are qualified but lack experience, there is the option to embark in volunteer opportunities. Remember, experience sells you and gives you a competitive edge. Hence, you can decide on hours to volunteer, e.g. 35 or 40 hours a week to gain experience, and also find your way into technical working forums where you build your network. Yeah, actually, for this, that you are qualified but you lack experience, you can always look for organizations that do stuff like ECD, teacher training, or even going, like we have a program with Khadija that we are trying to do literacy in schools in Kibera. So we have, you can also volunteer for that. That also builds your qualifications or your experience, sorry. And you can also just join the conversation. You have knowledge when you're put on a spot where you need to comment on ECD. You have knowledge about that as well. So let me see. I think there's one more. Yeah, there's the website. You can copy paste that. And yeah, Alois says very useful. I'm happy for the feedback I'm getting. Thank you, Sally, for the good presentation. So it's been a very good conversation. Yeah, you have something? Is there something else?
I have a comment up there from Faith, the ECD hub. I can see up on the comments.
Oh, let me see. You can read it. Oh yeah, found it. Yeah, we also have the ECD hub for Aga Khan University, which aims on educating and informing more stakeholders on the same and bringing more ECD stakeholders together. There is ECD Madrasa in Coastal, which started in Zanzibar and adopted by the Muslim communities in East Africa. Yeah, there's so much information you can find online, and also clubs like those that have that deal on ECD, because ECD is the root of everything. It's the root of education, is where you implant the foundation of the child. And it's not just in the education sector, it's health, it's social, it's everything holistically, it's everything, it's every stakeholder doing their part. I always say, if you do your part, someone else does their part. We're going to support, we are making a change one step at a time. Of course, it's not going to happen overnight. With their policies that have been, we've been trying to push for years and years and years, and some of them have just gotten signed the other day. So it's a process that requires each one of us to just do their point. Once you encounter this child, make a mark. Make a mark. The next person, because as an educator, you know, you have, like, we all have our own, what's the word? We all have our own expertise. Like for me, maybe it's ECD. For someone else, it's high school. For someone else, it's university. So once you encounter this child in your space, make sure you make a positive impact such that even when they go to the next stage, your foundation was so strong that whatever happens, if they still have that as they grow up to be independent and just be a good member of society, not a functioning one, a functioning, but also a good member of society. So I think we can wrap up there. I don't know if anyone else has something to add before we finish. Sally, you have something else? I've seen two more comments. Congrats on the issue on inclusivity. It requires much, and yeah, it's true, especially in Kenya. Like I said, when we were having that conversation on deaf inclusion, most people don't know that Kiswahili is a requirement for you to go to university. So and in sign language, there's no Swahili. So most deaf kids just stop their learning at high school, which is very sad because they have so much potential and they can't join university because they don't have Swahili. So those are some of the policies that we need to constantly push for. They need a curriculum that is designed to work for them, not against them, because currently it's working against them. If they can't proceed from university to university, they end up going to technical universities. And maybe this child is gifted in engineering and maybe something that is only offered at a degree level. So these are some of the policies that we need to address as stakeholders. Yeah, so let me see the other one. I think it was from Najma. Yeah, point of clarification, Madrasa Ali to Zanzibar, Uganda. Yeah, I think that was a clarification from Fabian. So we need to continuously, and then with ECD, it's a continuous learning process. What works now might not work in a year or two. So we also need to continuously educate ourselves, get that information. It's out there and it's free. Like last week when we had Nelias, she highlighted a research paper that was done from Harvard University that is centered on brain development, and it's there for everyone to read. So even as an educator, that can be very helpful when you're dealing with learners from kindergarten, elementary, and high school level. So the information is out there. We just need to type and find it and use it. So I think today has been so amazing. Oh, there's one more. Thank you so much, Najma. If you compare, Sally, would you like to take that question?
Yes, I'd love to. Thank you for the opportunity. If you compare it for 4 and CBC, would you say it was a positive move? In a nutshell, I'd say yes. Think of it this way. The difference, or rather the highlight of CBC, is that learning becomes child-centered. If we can understand the importance of having learning being child-centered, then we have won. We have won as educators, we have won as caregivers, we have won as policymakers, we have won as a country, a nation, and a globe. So yes, think of it this way. CBC is child-centered. Willing to just love the children or your child to be in an area whereby they can explore and they can become themselves. And me as a parent, I can understand what my child is going through and I can be able to inform and be part of the process. And me as an educator as well, I can be able to see a child thrive through the arms and the hands of this one person that understood the curriculum quite correctly, CBC. That's what I can say about it. Mengine, maybe another podcast session, and Beatrice can invite us to discuss further on that. Thank you.
Yeah. I think for what I'm finding most challenging about the CBC is most teachers have not received the proper training to fully implement it as it's supposed to be. You find in classrooms it's a CBC textbook, but it's being administered the 844 way, the teaching method ways. They were not fully trained, most of them. I don't know how that is going. I don't know the progress of the teacher training on that. So I think that we'll have a guest from KICD next week who's going to address that further. Because I've seen that as a problem in most schools, like the teachers are teaching the 844 way, but the content is CBC. No, CBC is more learner-centered, but 844 is more teacher-centered than the learner-centered. So you find they're administering the CBC content through 844, which does not work. So next week we'll have a lovely guest from KICD, Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, and then they'll tell us more on how that training has gone. I see Rebecca has her hand up. You can unmute.
Thank you, Beatrice. Thank you, Sally, and everyone on board. It's such a wonderful conversation. And I would just like to add in my voice about the lack of training or the inadequate training that our teachers have had, and also contribute towards this CBC thing. I'm not so fast in typing, so I started and realized I made
it's okay.
So with the CBC, it's true there hasn't been sufficient training to the in-service teachers, especially because we have the current group that is already taking their education training, already having integrated. Different universities and colleges have integrated such kind of training to make sure that by the time the teachers get out, they are well trained and well versed, ready for the children. But for the in-service teachers, it's been something that has been rolling out on some basis. Not everyone is getting on board at the same time. And this is what I will add to this. We realize that our government does not have like enough resources and abilities to train everyone at the same time. And I would encourage every educator to take up professional development sessions to help them or rather equip them with skills relevant for implementing the CBC curriculum. This can be done asynchronously in such a way that not everyone is learning the same thing at the same time. So the teachers, educators in here take opportunities that are coming for professional development sessions that will equip you with skills that will make you a better teacher when you get into the classroom. And in such a scenario where you have a book developed with content geared towards the CBC, you have an opportunity for private and personal learning, and you also have a possibility of trying to implement these great strategies to help with learning in your classroom. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rebecca, for that wonderful comment. I think it's given us a bit more clarity on the CBC curriculum. I'm seeing Najma has a comment. CBC requires resources, and this is a challenge for most areas. And that's true. CBC, since it's learner-centered, it requires a lot of resources. So you find schools that cannot really support the resources, are just making do with what they have. So, but we will delve more into it next week. So all of you, I expect to see you next week as well, and come with your comments and your questions and your content ready. So Rebecca, your hand is still up. Oh, Mishukisha. So I think we can end our podcast there today. Thank you so much, Sally. It was an honor to have you here with us, and I hope I'll see you again next week. And thank you everyone for your wonderful comments, for keeping the conversation going. Sarah, Dorina, I'll just shout out all of you. Let me just read your names. Alois, thank you so much for your comments. Danielle, there's Daniel and there's Danielle, Dorina, Faith, Jane, Maina, Martina, my mentor, Mary, Madam Najma, thank you so much for joining us once again. Nelias, Rachel and Rebecca for your wonderful comments. Rose, Sarah, as always, Sarah is always the first one to join. Thank you so much. I think we should get you a gift. And Timothy, thank you so much for joining. I'll make this the live recording available for those who want. I can send it to you via email, and we'll also post it on our YouTube. So yeah, I think that's it. I don't know if anyone else has something to say before we wrap it up. Sally, nobody?
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So you guys have a lovely evening. It was a pleasure, and I'll see you all next week. Bye.